For today's meditation, we are reading from the book of Judges, chapter 3, verses 1 to 6. Now these are the nations that the Lord left to test Israel by them, that is, all in Israel who had not experienced all the wars in Canaan. It was only in order that the generations of the people of Israel might know war, to teach war to those who had not known it before. These are the nations, the 5 lords of the Philistines, and all the Canaanites, and the Sidonians, and the Hivites who lived on Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon, as far as Lebo Hamath. They were for the testing of Israel, to know whether Israel would obey the commandments of the Lord, which he commanded their fathers by the hand of Moses. So the people of Israel lived among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And their daughters they took to themselves for wives, and their own daughters they gave to their sons, and they served their gods. One of the earliest promises given regarding the promised land was that to Abraham. God put him into a deep sleep and made a covenant with him and showed him the future. In Genesis chapter 15, verse 18, on the day the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, to your offspring I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Kadmonites, to the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. Further in their history, God told Moses in Exodus chapter 23, verse 23, when my angel goes before you and brings you to the Amorites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Canaanites, the Hivites and the Jebusites, and I blot them out, and you shall not bow down to their gods or serve them, nor do as they do, but you shall utterly overthrow them and break their pillars in pieces. Even though God said he will blot them out, still further as they were about to enter the promised land, he explicitly commanded them through Moses in Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 16. But in the cities of these people that the Lord your God is giving for you an inheritance, you shall save alive nothing that breathes, but you shall devote them to complete destruction, the Hittites and the Amorites, the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, as the Lord your God has commanded, and that they may not teach you to do according to all their abominable practices that they have done for their gods, and so you sin against the Lord your God. From the above passages, we see a spiritual principle. When God promises something and assures us that he will do it, it is a command to us to go and take hold of it by faith. We know that God made an unconditional promise to Abraham, and he will certainly do it one day. But those who did not believe and act on it lost the blessings of its fulfillment. Later in their history, even after the exile, we see the effects of their disobedience. In Ezra chapter 9, verse 9. After these things had been done, the officials approached me and said, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the peoples of the land with their abominations, from the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Egyptians and the Amorites. For they have taken some of their daughters to be wives for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy race has mixed itself with the peoples of the lands. And in this faithlessness of the hand of the officials and the chief men have been foremost. There are 2 types of sins that we commit. Ones are the sins of commission. We do the things that the Lord told us not to do, like do not steal, do not commit adultery, do not covet, etc. Others are the sins of omission. We do not do the things that the Lord has told us to do, like in Ephesians 4:25. Therefore, having put away falsehood, let each one of you speak the truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another. Or in John 13, verse 34, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You are also to love one another. Of these, the sins of commission are obvious and can be easily detected. But the sins of omission are often hidden, but have very huge consequences on the long run. In the case of the Israelites, to drive out the inhabitants of the land was an explicit command given to them. But they failed to do it, and these were the consequences. Number one, these people grew stronger and began to oppress the people of Israel. Number two, they were not able to experience the rest that the Lord had promised them. In Hebrews chapter 4, verse 8, the writer says, for if Joshua had given them rest, God would not have spoken of another day later on. So then there remains a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For whoever has entered God's rest has also rested from his works, as God did from his. The people of Israel were constantly at war with these nations. Thirdly, they were constantly exposed to the strange gods of their neighbors. This often overcame their feeble tendency to worship their God. Fourthly, they intermarried with them and began to serve their gods. Verse 6, and their daughters they took to themselves for wives, and their own daughters they gave to their sons, and they served their gods. This interaction continued all through, even to the post-exile years. Number 5, instead of living without these nations, they had to now live among them. We read in verse 5, so the people of Israel lived among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. As long as they lived among them, they had to make compromises and were exposed to all the evil practices of these nations. Sixthly, they eventually went into exile because of these very sins that they had copied from these nations while forsaking the Lord. When God commissioned Joshua after the death of Moses, he told them explicitly that their success depended on keeping his commandments. In Joshua chapter 1 verse 6, be strong and courageous, for you shall cause this people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, being careful to do according to all the law that Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may have good success wherever you go. Let us be vigilant of what we allow within us. Driving out sin from our hearts and resisting the call of our flesh and the devil takes all our courage and faith. Complacency may have serious consequences for us, our family, and for our future generations. We must not make peace with the status quo. God has promised us sin shall not have dominion over you. Let us go forward like Caleb, strong in faith, to experience the rest that is promised to us. God bless.